Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello and welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. This is the Live Life Driven feature where we try to give you some tools that are helpful in life and where you're going. And at the same time, we'll get a little background on our guests. And I've got Chris Felton on the line right now. Good morning, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Jim. Doing awesome, brother. Excited to be here with your crew.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, I love offering resources and tools for my listeners to help them get ahead or stay ahead. Or what I say, we've paid the dummy tax, so they don't have to. And I know you've got a great story. So, Chris, if you don't mind, give us a little background on yourself, and then I want to dig deep into some of our topics about finances and our money.
Yeah, I'm in Colorado, and I grew up to 60 miles north in Loveland, Colorado, 60 miles north of Denver. Great parents, who, guess what? Never learned how money worked. 60% of divorces are tied back to financial stress. 5 leading killers in the United States today are stress related. I think money's the root of that. I think it's what killed my parents, who died broke with cancer and all sorts of things. That's another story. But, I took their money cues and went to college at Colorado State University, got an accounting degree, moved down to Denver, and actually went to work for the largest accounting firm in the world at that time called Arthur Andersen. I was a CPA. I looked smart. I transitioned into becoming a financial services entrepreneur. Had a very bad first marriage, 2 little kids, get divorced separated and divorced 0405. My kids moved halfway across the country to live with my ex. This has all been resolved. Amazing. But basically, it wasn't good. And then married my second and last wife. I appear to be successful, but what she figures out is what I'm hiding from her, because we didn't merge our money, was $250,000 of unsecured debt that I had to use to pay off my ex-wife for the business and all sorts of things. I enter into a really bad office lease. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm on the lease. I'm paying my ex-wife $5,200 a month for alimony and child support. So, Jim, I got the equivalent of 4 or 5 mortgages going out. I'm leaking several thousands of dollars. I transitioned through intuition, which maybe we have time to dive into how important that is, but getting out of my own way and transitioning through intuition and letting my wife handle the money, because based on results, I didn't know what I was doing. She's shocked at how smart I look, but how stupid I am.
Yeah.
And we're basically, she's trying to figure it out. I understand what she was doing. One of my favorite quotes is optimism and delusion sleep in the same bed together. Mm-hmm. So I was optimistic that things are going to change, but totally delusional. And then finally, the night that changed everything was I had to come home, and I had ran out of ways to pay my ex. I have no other ways to pull on debt. I'm maxed out. My wife still has some money. She's got good savings habits, good money habits. I don't. I have to convince my wife to give me money of hers so I can pay my ex-wife the next day.
Wow.
I
want to hold you there because I know where this story is going to transition. You touched on a bunch of things, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
you're good. Wish we had more time.
Dude, there's so many people that have been in this position, myself included. I was an entrepreneur going through a divorce, cleaned out my 401k, gave her half. By the way, she was awesome in the divorce. It was very amicable. She could have crushed me. Gave her half, but then I used the other half to continue paying for my business. Didn't pay the taxes, at the time. Figured I would, I was delusional that I would have that money. Business is going to crush it. No problem. and got into that hole. I mean, you're not the only one. I'm not the only one. This happens every single day around this country, including our parents, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was my dummy tax, brother.
Well, and it cost you, right? Just curious if you're willing to share some of that unsecured debt that you had of that 250. Obviously, you're paying your ex-wife. Was it credit cards and vehicles and all those other good things?
It wasn't exorbitant lifestyle as much as I had to give her a big chunk of money I didn't have.
Yeah.
And but it was a stupid office lease where I'm basically on the lease. My guys are supposed to reimburse me for their share, and that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So I was attracting every situation possible to go into more and more and more and more debt.
Yeah.
Which was just so I mean there's some vehicles and some things there, but I wasn't big materialistic guy. I just kept making stupid decisions that crushed us.
Yeah, I'm reading Atomic Habits right now. Great book, a lot of principles that some of them I've put into practice without knowing that they were part of those types of principles. But what's interesting is the example that he used on the negative side of habits is how you can get in the habit. You buy something nice and that feels good, so I got to buy the next nice thing and the next nice thing. The example he uses is you buy a new couch for the living room, and then you feel like, well, now I need a new flooring. Now I need new, and the list goes on. It's never ending. And I think that's how we get ourselves into these troubles, is that we're not looking at what's happening with our habits or how we're getting ourselves in this downward spiral. So I really appreciate your honesty on that story. Now, I cut you off when you were talking about you needed to borrow money from your now wife to pay your ex-wife. And I suppose the shit hit the fan, but can continue on.
It hit it. My wife's about 5'1". Everybody in my office is scared of her. Volcanic Marlowe is not a pretty sight, but she lost it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So much she threw her purse at me.
Yeah.
That's when you know a woman's totally pissed. Not only once, but 3 times.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm this, I'm that, just, going after me hard. And then I just looked at her and I was like, well, why are we still married?
Mm-hmm.
Which was really the question of all questions. Total crickets, total silence. She went upstairs and sat with that all night, Jim. And the turning point for me was I sat there and I'm like, oh my God, it was clear as day, brother. I, Chris Felton, created the entire mess.
Wow.
And I could see it. I'm writing a book right now. I'm in a 9-month book writing process about a lot of this stuff and doing the deep dives on it. But, my ex-wife didn't have a chance. A bunch of people didn't have a chance. I created this disaster, and it was the first time in my life that I took 100% responsibility for the mess.
Yeah.
So the transitioning point from there was, what I realized was wherever I've had a problem, I've always been there. And I was the common denominator of the problems. And so the next day, my wife and I got together. She's like, nope, we're staying married. We're not declaring bankruptcy. We're going to figure it out. She got on planes, trains, and automobiles and interviewed wealthy financial couples that had wealth in every area of their life, not just money. And I told her I was going to work on my belief systems around money like an Olympic athlete would treat a sport.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I got up early, I journaled, I thought, I'd pull each belief out, change it. And it wasn't overnight, but, basically overhauled generations of poverty, get by less than mindsets. And what we experience and have been continuing to experience is a massive financial transformation. So that's why I get on these podcasts, is to, teach people that stuff's possible.
Yeah, what's interesting when I'm listening to your story, I've got a distant family member, very similar to your story, but he never got caught. In other words, he didn't get so far behind in everything that the world found him out until after retirement. He was in life insurance sales, always played this role like he had more than the next guy, had a nice house in Newport Beach. They had horses and all this stuff. Come to find out, he was absolutely broke in the hole, and he left his wife with nothing but bills and debt and grief and taxes. And really, the sad part is, and there's the lesson here, is that now she feels like, wow, we led a life of, a false life. We presented ourselves as something that we weren't, and she was led to believe, because she wasn't involved with the finances, that they had more than, really way more than they presented. And now she's, in her senior age, she's embarrassed and can't believe that she was a fool to that. So I guess a little bit of the message is, let's be transparent with our spouses, the people that are half responsible for what we have and what we don't have. Because there's a story in there. So thank you for being so transparent on yours. So how do we change our mindset? How do we get away from all this stuff? How do we not get into these traps?
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just understanding, I coach entrepreneurs and my clients on it too, is we gotta own where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept's called objective reality. And it's the ability to look at your situation without blame and judgment and emotion and negativity and all that, because people that struggle, Jim, they don't want to look at their situation, so they don't look at it, and then you ignore it, and then it gets worse. That's what I was in. That was the optimism and the delusion. And so part of it is, you got a financial GPS. We call it point A. That's where you are. Point B, where do you want to go? But point A for me was looking down and looking at the bloody balance sheet, looking at the income statement, forgiving myself of what I created. I knew I was getting handed a challenge that was going to help people, because I wasn't going to grow unless I had it. And so one of my favorite equations is event plus response equals outcome. So the event was, I created the mess. My response wasn't positive for many years. Finally, my response was, okay, it is what it is. This is acceptance. What do I want? And what's the next thing? So part of that is, what is point A? And it's where you are financially, but also I believe it's where you are with your belief systems. Mm-hmm. And I hired a coach for 4 years who said, get a journal. You no longer have a money problem. You have a money project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We look at projects way differently. And you just started with, write the word money down and write down everything you make up about that word. And for most people, Jim, hard, right? Not enough. Rich people stink, just all these limiting beliefs. And I had a page of limiting beliefs. And my key was, I just had to shift what was on that page to something that was more empowering and do the work. And then the inside world will always match the outside world. So part A, where are you financially? What is the balance sheet, income statement, budgeting? Where are you? Where are you on your belief systems? And then what's point B? What do you want? So my wife and I set a very empowering savings goal, best goal I've ever set in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat down and realized that, we probably spent an hour on it. And if you're single, you can do the same thing. Why do we care about setting a savings goal? And we created what I call compelling emotional reasons, just emotional reasons of why we wanted to move. So I call that the A to B. That's stuff I can coach people on, but it's really powerful. It's how we've been goal setting for the last, 12, 13 years.
What's amazing to me, you said you spent an hour on that project, and I know that it extends well beyond that hour, but if you really added up the hours that it took to rearrange your mindset and where you're going and figure out your problems, compared to not doing that and the life of grief, what an incredible investment to get the tools you need to be financially smart, sit down with your spouse, your significant other, and formulate a plan, even if it only takes you an hour, right? That investment could be the best investment of time in your entire life, because the grief, like you talked about, it's not worth it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hate financial stress. Most people spend more time planning their vacations than they do their lives.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that goes through their mind, Jim, is they try to figure out, they negotiate the price they have to pay.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time going, is this really going to be worth the effort? and you and I could spend,